Coach,
Yeah.
when,
Go ahead.
Coach, the injury to Jalen Johnson last year was a big blow for this team. With Jalen returning and that newfound versatility, where do you see this team getting to possibly this season?
You know, I think projections like that are never something that is my focus. You know, we always have high expectations for ourselves. I think we never would want to set a ceiling on our team, but equally, in order to achieve those things, that can't be your focus. You know, our focus has to be, you know, on every day, you know, trying to improve and bringing that mentality, that humility, that energy, that commitment, and that's really what propels that growth and helps you maximize who you are as a group. You mentioned Jalen. I think Jalen maybe is excited as anybody, you know, to get going. He's worked unbelievably hard to come back from some injury situations that I know were frustrating for him because he loves to play. But I also think he's another guy that, you know, we have to be patient with. You know, Jalen's, you know, young is a relative concept, you know, on our team. But I would throw Jalen in the young bucket. And I think he understands that. But you can still be good when you're young, and he's that. You know, I think like some of our other guys, the key for Jalen is to be efficient. You know, and because of his versatility, he can impact the game in a lot of ways. You know, he's an elite defensive rebounder, so when he grabs it off the rim and pushes it, and either attacks the rim or passes it, it's pretty hard to guard. You know, but I want him to do more than that. He wants to do more than that. His teammates want him to do more than that. We have a lot of guys that can do more, but we have to be focused on doing more collectively. And how everybody can't quote unquote do more all at once. We have to read the game, and that's where our efficiency comes from. But similar to our team, you always want more, but that can't be your focus, whether it be your individual production or anything external. We need to keep our focus where, by placing it in the place that gives us the greatest probability for success.
Quin, when you say that you want this team to be patient yet urgent, do you mean that in the macro sense or the micro sense or both? So what I mean, macro sense as an entire franchise team, micro sense as far as just individual players and that sort of thing.
That's a good point. I would say both. I think they go hand in hand. You know, I don't know how many players are still in our roster from 2 years ago when I started, maybe 3. And we've got the 3rd youngest team in the league. So it kind of speaks to it. I don't know how you can conclude anything else than macro patience from that. You have a new group who happens to be the 3rd youngest team in the league. So reconciling that with, you know, wanting to be really good today, I think you can be both. You know, I think longer term success, you know, is a process. Very seldom do you see a team go from here to here. Usually there's steps along the way because, you know, having success is an experience in itself. A lot of it is about adjusting to failure and adjusting to adversity and allowing that to propel you. So if that's where we're headed and where we want to be, I think it is. You know, the way that we get there is to not necessarily project out with a 5-year plan. That can happen, you know, but right now, you know, we're talking about this year, and we're talking about this week, and we're talking about today, and if we approach it that way, I think over a period of time, that seems like a long time from now. You know, the NBA sometimes is, they say dog years, right? You know, every year it seems like a long time. And so for us to maximize that, I think our focus being in the present is the way that we can actually, ironically, connect with the future. I think it's a great question. And to reiterate, I do think it's both for all the reasons that I gave you.
Coach, obviously you haven't had a practice yet, but you added a high caliber big in Chris Davis. You already had two of them in Jalen and Onyeka. In the right situations, do you feel like you can roll with any combination of two of those three as your bigs?
I do. I think this is a little bit, goes to something I believe about coaching. And, it's about maximizing the roster. And to do that, there has to be growth from those individual players. Those combinations may look different as far as how they perform on the court. But absolutely, that's where I see this. Those guys having enough. I think you saw progression and growth, particularly here, from Jalen, even though it was a shortened season. You saw it at the end of the year with Onyeka. We've seen Kristaps in multiple roles in his time in the league. And so those guys being able to play in combination, can be a strength of our team. It's also something that they haven't done yet. So it's really in a microcosm, as we were spending time on the previous questions, I think that, having that potential there and, moving it forward with reps and experience, and then being able to adjust at various times, when we need to, and our players having the understanding, to help each other with a lot of those adjustments, because that's what versatility requires. Versatility, by definition, is change, and balance is change. So the key things for us, and with whatever lineup, there's some consistent constants that need to be our identity. No matter who's on the floor, it's Kristaps and O, if it's Jalen and Kristaps, if it's O and Jalen, and those guys aren't playing 2-on-2 against the other team either, right? So that's what it needs for a team to get better, improve, and find an identity. And that's where we are. If you haven't played together and you're young, you just think all of us, right? But life is about that process. And sometimes, as I've said before, it's pretty much a given. I think we all know that, that this league is hard and there's adversity, whether it comes from injury or good night, bad night, fatigue, and how we deal with that collectively, is key to us continuing to progress the way we want to.
Coach, right? So it was a short time, but you coached Nickeil Alexander-Walker for 15 games in Utah. What are you most looking forward to with the opportunity to coach him again?
Yeah, it's interesting, keeping the theme of dog years, 15 games, about a quarter of a season. You can do fractional math, 7 years per one season. That's still a pretty healthy amount of time that I was with him. And with him enough to really get to know him. Since the time that I coached him, when I say get to know him personally, he's really evolved as a player. And I think, that evolution for guys, it's easy to feel like, at a given time, it's a short race. It's not a short race, I should say, it's a marathon. And having a job is different than having a career. And Keel's evolving as a player, and you can see him continue to grow. The constant that I think he can provide us day to day is that consistency, that professionalism, that leadership, because he's been through a lot of that. He's had tough times where he's had to battle through stuff. He's had incredible success, individually with the team. He's a better shooter than he was when he was. He's a better passer. He's a better defender. So, continuing to do those things and doing them in a new environment, and as much as anything, his spirit, I think, is the thing that he can give this team that's really unique. That's a heck of a statement about a guy. I think it's reflective of of who he is and his journey. And I think his willingness to share that.
Coach, we all just finished watching this Pacers run of last year. It was pretty incredible. And you already talked about the pace that you want to incorporate with your team. Is there anything else from that style of play, whether it be, higher defensive pickup points, playing deeper into your rotation that you can take from that team and apply it to your own?
Well, I think we were third in pace last year. We led the league in passes ahead. We didn't convert as many. I think Indiana really took a step. You saw their defense take a step. A lot of respect for Rick. He's a friend. We've been, continuing to work on playing random basketball, for lack of a better word, read-based basketball. I think that's what we do. Our roster is beginning to formulate in a way where I think we're more capable of doing that. It goes to both as a coach, kind of how you feel your team should have the most success playing a certain way. That's been an evolution for a lot of our guys, for Trey in particular. He's playing more pick and roll with smalls. He's playing with more pace. There's less straight pick and roll at 5. There's more cutting. That kind of fits who we are, but that's a reflection of the game changing. And a lot of those things are consistent. I think being able to be disruptive defensively fits with that. So you want to be who you are, but who you can be. That sounds too philosophical, but some of those habits, continuity helps that. And if you look at all the numbers, that's what it says. We were last in the league in isolation. I think that's always the most effective way for our team to play. We have a balanced group, and for us to connect collectively and be comfortable with the final score and not the box score, is the key. And no matter how unselfish you may be individually, that's still a hard thing. They're not posting offensive efficiency in the box score. You don't pull that up online. You pull up somebody's bottom line numbers. So that's on you guys to capture that part of the game. And that's the key for us. That's where our progression lies. It's in being efficient with what we do and becoming better and better at it. And being better and better. We want the whole to be greater than the sum of the parts. And that requires a lot of commitment and a lot of sacrifice. And what is a league and a world of individual achievement? But when you see it in the end, if you can hang on to it, winning feels a lot better to everybody, and it's something you get to share. But it's hard, and I don't think we should run from the fact that it's hard. And it's a journey as well.